We're going to talk about the crime of reckless endangerment under Alabama law, and I'm going to let you have an opportunity to play judge and determine whether or not somebody, matter of fact, whether or not one of two people or both are guilty of this crime. So let's start. First thing you need to know is the law. The law is governed by Section 13A624 of the Code of Alabama, and that just says that a person commits the crime of reckless endangerment if they do two things. There's two elements. One, they recklessly engage in conduct, and two, that conduct creates a substantial risk of serious physical injury to another person. So let's talk about our facts. Jesse hates his neighbor. His neighbor's Nervous Norton. One day Jesse goes up to him and he says, you know what, I hate you, and he takes a gun and he points it at Nervous Norton. Well, Nervous Norton happens to be talking on his cell phone, and he takes a picture of Jesse pointing the gun at him. Norton calls the police. Police come. They arrest Jesse. Now, Jesse has a brother. You probably guessed his name, Frank. Frank, he hears about this. He is so mad. He goes up to Nervous Norton. Frank pulls out his trusty revolver and he points it at Nervous Norton. Norton takes another picture, calls the police. Police come and they arrest Frank. For what crime? Reckless endangerment. So they're both arrested and both charged with reckless endangerment. Both cases go in front of Judge Solomon Wise. At the trial, the evidence is presented in each case separately, and the evidence is what you've seen. Nervous Norton saying, here's what happened, here's the photograph of what happened when it happened. The judge makes a ruling. So now, you play judge. Is one guilty? Are both guilty? Is neither guilty? What did you rule and why? Well, if you said that Jesse was not guilty and that Frank was guilty, you'd actually be legally correct. Why? They're both guns. Well, here's why. If you remember, Frank pointed an automatic pistol at Nervous Norton. And the argument of Jesse's lawyer was, Judge, you couldn't tell whether or not that gun was loaded. So they failed to meet the second element of, hey, it creates a substantial risk of serious physical injury. Now, you may be going, well, pointing a gun sure does. You have to remember the law. In the law, the burden is on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt each and every element of the case. So if Jesse's lawyer argued, well, they didn't prove it, they didn't establish that the gun was loaded, he could potentially win. That would be up to the judge. But legally, it would be a correct argument. Now, Frank, he's not in such good shape. Frank's lawyer says, that's a good argument. Let me try that. Argues the same thing. Judge goes, get out of here. He's going to find Frank guilty. Why? Well, judge is going to say, it's a revolver, son. You pull the trigger, it's going to rotate a bullet into the chamber. And I can see from the photograph, it's a loaded gun. There was a substantial risk of serious physical injury. I don't have a reasonable doubt when it comes to Frank. So, that's what could happen. Now, in the real world, things are obviously more complicated. Most likely, a savvy prosecutor, he's going to charge Jesse, not necessarily with reckless endangerment. He might charge him with that, but he'd also charge him with the crime of menacing. And menacing occurs when, by some sort of physical action, you put somebody reasonably in fear of their life by something you're doing. So pointing a gun, even an unloaded gun, is going to put somebody in reasonable fear that they're going to be injured. I hope that none of you who are watching this is charged with something like this, but if you're in some sort of a legal jam and you need our help, of course, give us a call. We're happy to help you. Our phone number is below. And I do hope that you find these videos to be educational and informative. Thanks for watching.